Yeah. Hey, it's me. Let's talk about harm reduction in cycling. And I don't mean it in sort of like the junkies doing heroin way. Although, kind of in a way I do mean that. For instance, the entire idea with harm reduction in drug use is that drug addicts are going to do drugs no matter what, right? So the idea being that you want to provide them with clean rigs or places to shoot up where they're not like in alleys. You want to provide them with clean water, needles, whatever. It's like the understanding that they're not going to stop because you were like, you know, drugs are bad. They're going to stop when they're ready or when they die. So I guess the same could be applied in a much less dire and drastic way to the way some people approach spending money on their bike. Now, there are two tiers of people who are, I guess, fall into this category. One would be those who are too cheap and stubborn to pay for the things their bike needs. The other would be people who are really poor and who simply cannot afford to pay for the service their bicycle needs. Now, this is tricky because, you know, for some people it's like, dude, take a bus. You know what I mean? Like, your bike's broken, you're not willing to pay for it. I guess that means you don't have a bike anymore. Even so, I will often do the following things that I'm about to talk about for those people. Because whether it's stubbornness or poverty, I don't want anybody getting hurt. So if it's within my power to tweak a bum's bike or to somehow help someone who can't see the light, that their teeth and face is worth more than $30 or something like that, I will go ahead and just do stuff. Now, I don't own the shop, so from a purely you know, economic perspective, it's, in a way, if I owned the shop and dudes were just giving away labor, I'd be fucking pissed off. Luckily, I work for a great dude who understands the entire milieu of what we do. You know, we have really high-end clients, and we have just the scuzziest people. So, I guess this question is to other mechanics. Like, what do you do? Let's say someone comes in off the street. They've got something that is fucking dire, you know? Like, let's say they've got like a rim that is so worn from braking that at any moment it's going to, and it's a front wheel, mind you. I don't usually trip that hard about rear wheels being totally worn out because in my experience, when they blow up, generally what happens is the bike skids to a stop and you call an Uber and go home. Front wheels are the crippler. Front wheels exploding because the rim, you understand what I'm talking about, right? So like on a non-disc brake bike, the rim surface itself, the side of the rim, is part of the, it's the rotor essentially. It is the part of the brake that is being abraded by the rubber pads. So, especially here, where there's big hills and it's always this wet, slurgy mess, the brakes, brake track, which starts fairly flat, ends up dished out like this, and then when the material gets too thin, what happens is that, especially on high-pressure tires, it blows the side of the rim out. And on front wheels, often what that means is that the wheel blows out, spins around once, and then that I don't know, like shard of aluminum jams the fork and the person flies over their handlebars and breaks their neck or whatever. So that's a tough one. If I can, I'll go find them a wheel that is considered unsellable, something that has more rim wear than we're willing to sell, you know, to attach our name to, but infinitely less rim wear than what they're riding on. And I'll usually like give them a lowball price, like, hey, this is not really something we sell. If you give me like $5 for the labor, I'll throw your tire on. And sometimes even then they can't pay, but I'll almost always do it, you know. And sometimes they come back and spend real money, and sometimes they don't. There are lots of instances where you have like a twisted chain you could splice in. I mean, it's not the right thing to do. Splicing in chain to already used chain is it is the last thing I want to do. But having seen how a lot of this stuff fails, I just almost can't help myself. I feel almost compelled to fix deadly problems that leave people stranded in the middle of nowhere in a storm. So here's the question, though. It sort of opens you up to liability, right? So I understand that a lot of shops, what they'll do is just be like, fuck no, get out of here. Like, no money, no bicycle. So in my heart of hearts, I believe that most shops are not doing that simply because they're dicks. You know, I don't think that they're looking at some poor homeless guy who's like, please, it's my only form of transportation, and going, yeah, get out of here. I don't think that's the case. I think that for a lot of them, it's a huge liability problem. Like, they don't think that they can do a small thing on a bike and not get sued if that person gets hurt. Now, I've approached this several different ways. Like, if it's like sort of a local bum that I know and have a relationship with, we generally have an understanding where it's like, look, everything you own is fucking broken. Like, your entire existence is fucking broken, but especially your bike, which you live off of and is just made out of the worst smattering of corroded and busted in half parts. Generally with people like that, it's like, yeah, we have an understanding. I will keep you alive. It will cost you nothing. And I want you to not be super drunk when you come in. And I expect you to understand the limitations of what I'm doing. Because there are hard-ass limitations to fixing completely broken bikes. You know, the end of the road of entropy for bicycles. And other times when it's someone who simply wants something done and they're being really bullheaded about it. And actually, this doesn't even factor into cheapness, really. There's several jobs which, you know, we kind of specialize in doing the undoable or the unthinkable. But we'll do a lot of stuff that a lot of shops won't even touch. And I don't mean like crazy shit where there's like a huge degree of danger, but, you know, there'll be someone who has like a bonded 30-year-old frame and they're like, no, it was my dad's, I'm going to ride this. And, you know, we'll say, well, maybe make it a wall hanger. Don't actually take it on the road, dude. However, sometimes people insist, and so my approach in those situations is generally a waiver of some sort. Just some record that shows that they understand that what they are riding is considered unsafe by professionals. So, you know, what do? Do you kick them out of your shop? Do you refuse service? Especially because, like the junkie who's just going to put another fucking needle in his arm, these people aren't going to, whether it's, you know, because they're stubborn or whether it's because they have no choice, they're not going to stop riding their bike. You should see some of the stuff that comes in. It's shocking. You got people who, because it was incremental, because the damage to their bike happened over, let's say, a decade, they have learned how to ride bikes with no brakes, with chains that are twisted in 3 places. They just know to soft pedal through this one spot in the chain. They've ridden bikes that don't have inner tubes. They ride bikes that don't have seats. They're not stopping. They are not going to stop. And I'm a big softie when it comes to that, you know? I would love to gift them a bike and just be like, all right, Mr. Bum guy, here's like a brand new bicycle for you. But you can't do that. And you especially can't do that with everyone. And you can't, it's like you can't feed the trolls, but not in the internet sense. It's just like bicycle bridge trolls will swarm your shop if you get known for being the softest shop. That will always do like the wildest shit for them. So yeah, if you're a pro in a shop, or even if it's like applicable in other areas of your life, you know, I can imagine like working at a restaurant or something, like a cafe or a little diner, and there's like some neighborhood bums who come in, and it's like, they're not ever going to pay for anything. Like, you know that, they know that. But there's this relationship established where it's fucking cold out, and so they always get the free cup of coffee. Or whatever, you know? Or like you don't chase them away when they're rooting through your dumpster or something. It may be a little foolhardy on my part, but I think it's important. So, I don't know. It is almost summer here. It's like 9 o'clock. I can still hear birds chirping. There's a little bit of sun left in the sky. Yeah, I guess I finally feel serene again. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.